Welcome back to the desert, everyone. I'm excited to show you guys this video this week. There's been a bit of talk on Facebook about a little panel video that I posted, so I'm excited to get into this. First thing I'm going to do is play around with some of the LEDs. One thing to know about LEDs is that they are side sensitive, if you'd say. So there's a cathode and an anode. Unlike regular light bulbs or electricity, it can't go either way. It has to go a specific way. So all the anodes need to be connected, all the cathodes need to be connected, and then it will work. So here, this is a breadboard, what I'm using right now, the little white thing. It's basically wired underneath so you can make a test circuit. So as long as you just make sure that all the long ends of the LEDs are the same and the short ends are all the same. So the long end should be the positive, the short end should be the negative. You line them all up, they work. If you put them in backwards, they won't blow up, they won't burn out, they just don't work. So if you ever have an LED that's not working, when you first started, try flipping it around. It's probably backwards. I'm also playing with some resistors here. Resistors are kind of like a traffic jam. It slows things down, limits the amount of current flowing through, so it'll actually make the light dimmer. So I figured for some of the control panels, I might want to have slightly dimmer lights. And also, depending on what voltage you want to use, these LEDs are rated, I think, 3 to 3.2 volts. The battery that I'm using is 1.5. I am going to eventually hook them up to USB for testing, which is 5 volts, so they do get a little bit brighter. I'm probably going to end up using a 9 volt supply in the end, so I will have to reduce the voltage. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the maintenance bits, and yes, as you see, I probably should have actually done the soldering first before putting in the plastic fiber optic cables, but anyway. I just have to be careful, and I didn't burn any, so I was careful. So I'm just attaching these here right now. As I measure out the lengths of cable, I realized that there's a much better way to do things. So let me describe with the graphic right here. So again, electricity flows in a circle. That's why it's called a circuit. So the easiest thing to do would have been to connect all the cathodes together, all the anodes together, in a circle basically, and then have one lead come off and connect to the battery, because basically you want to get everything reduced down to one positive and one negative lead. What I did instead was basically extend each of the LED leads so that they could come together. It works. It's about the same amount of work, longer wires, but you can see here that it starts to become like a bird's nest. I feel like I'm making one of those rattan baskets that need to be woven together. So this is what I'm doing basically. Again, extending each lead and bringing them together. It works. It's just not as simple as I was just describing it earlier. Trying to get all the fibers through so they're out of the way. You want to test them a little bit. So this is just a little like a laser pointer that has a light in it. So it does work. Again, this is where if I would have only used basically half the wires or shorter wires, I would not have to go through all this because there would only be one wire coming off rather than, basically 4 for each color for each bit. So I separated them out front and back as well, just in case I wanted to, if I need to do something or separate. So here you go. It works. Again, it looks just like that. Leads are extended, then they're combined into 2, the front and back, and then they're just 2 leads, one positive, one negative that can go on the battery. This, again, would have been a much better way. And I'm going to show it again because I want myself to remember that's a better way to do it. This is with the blue LEDs that are installed there. I just, touched the battery onto it. I'm going to go ahead and seal everything up with liquid tape. I did want to test it on the fiber first. It is quite fat fiber, so I wasn't too worried about it melting, but I just wanted to make sure. Both pictures, the one on the right is the way I did it, the one on the left is the way I would do it next time. All right, so now that that's done, now that we've got the basic floor for the main hold set up with the pits, now we can work on some actual boards. just in case anybody's wondering, all this stuff I just got off Amazon. It's just a set of blank circuit boards, PCB boards. I bought a set of 100 flashing white lights, 100 flashing red lights, 100 flashing blue lights, and then a bag of mixed colored lights. Again, I only need the red, white, blue ones, but they're all there. So here I'm just trying a layout, seeing which, how I'm going to fit them on there, how many I can fit, how they're going to look. Even though, it's not going to be visible from the outside, I'm going to know it's there. And if the Falcon ever gets opened up, I'm going to be able to see the board. So I do want to make them look kind of pretty. One thing to make sure too, when you are putting the LEDs in, again, make sure that you know that you have a pattern and that you have a system for which way they go in, so that you know which one is the long leg, which one is the short leg, which one is the cathode, which one is the anode. Because again, they won't work if you put it in the wrong way around and you solder the whole board up and you have one LED that's not working. That's probably why. It's probably backwards. So just be careful. Now on these boards, again, these are just generic boards. They are just holes. They're not like a regular printed circuit board like you see in a computer that has all the circuits on it. They're just holes, so nothing's connected. So my thought is to make like a third rail on the back, so that when I push the LEDs through, each one, the anode and the cathode, will contact one of the rails that I'm soldering on here, and will work. It's kind of like basically the way the breadboard works. The wires are already inside. When you stick the LED or whatever it is that you're putting in the breadboard, it kind of locks in place, kind of the same way. So I've got that one rail on. Now I'm just folding the lead around it to A, hold the LED in place, and B, so that way I can solder it to the rail. The wonderful thing too about the human brain is that as you do things, you actually learn. So this does work. You will see that as I go along, not with this one, because this one I'm doing it the same way, but I ended up making, I think, 7 or 8 boards altogether. And as I went on, I found a much simpler way of doing it. I don't think it's as elegant as this one. I really like this because this way I can actually push the LEDs in and out and take them out, and they do work, even without soldering them in, because the rail holds them in place with enough pressure. But it is extra work. It is extra wires being soldered on. You'll see later on there's a much simpler way, which works, and it ends up looking okay. I'm working on the second row right now, so as you can see, for me, I had the short legs on the inside of my groupings. So what I'm bending right now is both sets of short legs across the center wire. And make sure the short's on the inside. This is now the third row. I think I'm the third and the fourth row. I think I put both of them on. A lot of times I'll double check when I put them in. I look again at the legs, make sure they're the right length. I did make a mistake a couple weeks ago when I was kind of playing around with some things. I went ahead and cut the legs off because it would be less to push through the board and make it easier. Of course, then I was totally lost as to which was the anode and which was the cathode. I do know now, I've looked at enough LEDs because each board I'm making holds 40 LEDs. Just by looking at the bulb now, I can tell which side is the anode and which side is the cathode. So regardless if it has a long leg or a short leg, I can actually just look at it. And you can see, I would recommend just take a look if you are starting to work with LEDs. Look at them, look at the inside. You can see through the bulb, it's clear enough. And that way you'll know what each end looks like, what each side looks like. just, you know, it's like double checking. It's like a chef tasting his food before, you know, before it goes out. Same thing with this. Check it, do a few things, test it, make sure it works. Because getting to the end and realizing it doesn't work just sucks. So yeah, each board, a full board can hold, at least the way I have them lined up, 40 LEDs. Each one has 2, so that's 80 contact points. And then in this one I'm making those third rail cross members as well. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 of those, plus the ones in the middle, so there's 8. So 8 rails plus 80 solder points. It's a lot of work. Each one's a lot of work. So yeah, take my advice, do it the easy way. This, like I said, this way works. It's nice, but do it the way that I do it later. Use the legs of the LEDs as the wires. You notice I'm cutting them all off here, which you will have, of course, you'll have extra anyway. Word of warning, don't let them drop on the floor. If they do, please sweep them up right away. If you've ever walked around in bare feet, either inside or outside, and stepped on a pin and had it stick into your foot about an inch, that's what happens. I thought to myself, it's like, oh sure, I gotta be careful. I wouldn't want to step on one of these, it might go through my foot like a pin. And sure enough, the next day, guess what? I had 2 stuck in my foot. So yeah, please be careful. Don't drop them. They do, when you snip them off, they do tend to jump. I learned after painful feet to make sure I don't let them jump around. Yeah, you might notice that I kind of hold wires very close to the soldering iron. I play guitar as well, so I cook a lot, so I have calluses on my fingers. And doing it quickly, it gets warm, but it's usually not too bad. But that one, for some reason, I think the solder went right through the hole and right onto my skin, so that was kind of painful. Now this board, again, didn't have any resistors on it. I put the connector on and all the LEDs. I did not put any resistors on, so it won't work. Even if it's plugged in, it won't work. I also want to make sure I keep my workspace clean, because I did have an instance where one of these little pieces of leftover LED leg fell onto the circuit board and was actually in between the LEDs. I didn't see it. The whole circuit stopped working. And I was really confused because it was working before, and I was like, what happened to it? Why didn't it work? Turns out, of course, there was a piece of wire shorting everything out. So yeah, keep your workspace clean. Do as I say, not as I do. I tell my daughter the same thing. Here I'm basically connecting every other row. That's what the little jumps are for. There goes the resistor. I'm going to use 2 resistors on this board, one for the blue bank and one for the white bank. One thing that's nice about LEDs, it's kind of cool, even though the anode and the cathode must be the right way around. When it comes to the resistor, you can actually put it in front of or behind the LED. Normally, traditionally, it goes, you get the battery or the power source through the resistor to the LED and then back to the power source again. But what's nice, and I didn't actually realize this until recently, that you can just put them anywhere you want. So it's kind of cool, because I do in some of my later boards, when I was trying to add a second or a third resistor to try to reduce the brightness of the LED, on some of them I put the resistor in front, and some of them I put the resistor in back, and some of them I had one in front and one in back. So that worked well. It just kind of made the layout of the board look different. So I was just kind of messing around. As far as I know, and based on my research as well, there's no advantage or disadvantage to doing it either way. So this is actually, again, the second board. that I'm working on. I'm already doing it differently. I added the connector on it first, then I added the jumper wires. Now again, just repeat, put all the bulbs in again. Yeah, I was doing 5 per row and then bending them. So here you see, rather than putting in those extra rails like I did before, I'm just using the legs from the LEDs. I'm bending them over, and see how they all line up. I'm just gonna eventually trim them off so they all go end to end to end, but slightly overlap, and then I can just solder them all together and it becomes one fixed line. So I don't need to add another piece. It doesn't allow for removal or insertion of LEDs like we did with the first one, but for these, you know, once they're made, I really don't need to change the LEDs once I've made up my mind what colors I need and in what quantities, depending on where in the ship they're going to go. So they don't need to be removable. So this works, and it's faster too, because I don't have to keep cutting the wires and soldering on the extra wire first before putting the LEDs in, etc. They just go in, bend over the legs, cut them off, solder them together, and then test. Now these LEDs, they're just standard flashing LEDs. So technically, in theory, they flash at the same rate, but of course they don't, as you can see. So even though they start out at the same, flashing the same initially, they soon go out of sync, which is exactly what I want. So it works out perfectly. Because I don't want all the lights to flash at the same time. And you'll notice too that as more LEDs get added, the difference is more striking, which is perfect. Yes, I know. Red is positive, black is negative. But for all my life, of course, we've always been told red is negative. You do something bad, it's red. Stoplight is red. Things are red. So even to this day, 55 years old, red being positive is weird. So for me, I just think of the circuit as a circuit. I'm not really too concerned with the wire colors. But I did want to get it straight for you guys. So I did color that one little red piece that I had in there. I went ahead and colored it black for you. Here I'm cutting off the legs. And then again, once they're all soldered together, it just basically looks like one nice long line. It works. Yes, I always hold my breath every time, even though I'm very confident in my skills and I take the time to make sure everything's correct. There's always that what if, but luckily for the most part they work. So again, I think I said I made a total of 7 or 8 boards. Here's the first few of them. I went ahead and added connectors, multiple connectors, and even like the pigtails to them, so that I can connect them together. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to lay them out inside the Falcon yet, but this will give me some more options. I can daisy chain them, or I might even just have, a power source running to each one individually. I haven't decided yet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, so 8. The one on the left, so that one has my LBS on it, my light blocking straws. We had a bag of straws that we weren't using anymore, and it turns out they fit absolutely perfectly right over the LEDs. So I took a whole bunch of them, painted them all black, and then cut them up into about 3/4 inch sections. So those are the LEDs. Now this is what they're going to. The LEDs themselves look cool, they look flashy, but that's not the end goal. The end goal, of course, is to, now this is, I'm just going to show you guys this. This is going to take a while to put together. This is the console that probably has the most individual lights. And what I mean by individual lights is that there are several banks on this console of rows of lights, and I want those to be flashing, but I don't want all of them to be flashing at the same time. The cockpit has quite a few lights. The back wall of the cockpit also has quite a few lights. There will be some flashing ones, but I didn't see very many rows of lights. Now, to me, a row of lights either is like on or off or a whole bunch of flashing. And you'll see in a few minutes once this panel's up what I mean. And this is the reason why I needed to do so many individual flashing lights. Because, of course, if you stick more than one fiber into a single flashing light, the lights are going to flash at the same speed at the same time, which is not what I want. Because unless they are related systems in the imaginary ship, they should not be flashing together. So that's my goal, is to have as many separate lights as possible. Now, I don't want everything flashing, of course, because that would just, even me, that would give me a fit. But I do want some. So the majority, of course, are going to be just steady on, but especially this nav console, or I want it to be the row lights that are on there. I think there's 4 rows or 4 banks of road lights. So I just want them to all flash separately. If I just wanted to do steady lights, I would basically only need 3 lights for the entire Millennium Falcon. 1 red, 1 white, 1 blue. And that'd be it. Because that's all the colors of the lights. But again, I don't want that. Some of the lights are flashing. Some of the lights should be flashing. So I need to have white steady, white flashing, red steady, red flashing, blue steady, blue flashing. So just about everything you see me making, all those boards, most of them are flashing lights. Because again, the steady lights, I only need a few. This is my idea here for the light blocking straws. This is some of that sticky putty stuff for putting posters up on walls, so you don't take the paint off when you're done. I use it for painting, for holding small pieces. So I thought it might be a good idea to wrap some of it around the LED fiber to A, hold it in place, and B, keep it centered. Because when I did the mini panel on Facebook a couple days ago, it was very hard to even hold just those 18 fibers in the straws without them moving around. So I need to have some way to kind of keep them in there. And this works. It worked out okay. I will say though that even just the temperature of my fingers, making the little balls, and it being Arizona, even though I'm inside, it's, I don't know, about 80 something degrees, it does tend to get soft. So yeah, nice and pretty, huh? All the lights are on. There we go. How's that? Is that better? And I'm trying to think of a way to have the light, because having the light behind it, of course, doesn't work. Having the light in front of it, you can't see the fibers, but I want to be able to see the console as well. So, and of course, the GoPro isn't really the best camera as far as optics go. But hopefully, it gives you an idea. You see the banks of blinking lights. That's what I really wanted to. I don't want them to all blink at the same time. So I think I was pretty successful. So for now, I just made them all red. I'm probably not going to have all 3 of those red. I might even have some with a different color. The 2 bottom ones, as you see, they're 2 rows, so I could have different colors. There's also the row of blue down below that, so I might switch some things up. I do have a few pictures of the Nav console, both in a Star Wars Millennium Falcon book. And I will go and look at the movies again just to make sure that it's kind of similar. But I do kind of like the way it looks. Yeah, it took 4 hours to do all that, the fibers and the little spitballs. So I was thinking about putting the whole thing together for this video, but after spending, again, 4 hours just on that Nav console, that's, no, I'm sorry. It's the next time that one goes together, it's going to be the final build when it gets installed into the Falcon for the last time. So I did just want to check on the hold a little bit. I hadn't actually tested this, especially since putting it all together. So here I'm working on the fibers for the kissing booth, the circuitry bed. Same principle, just using, again, I'm not really separating all these out. This is more for a test. I'm not trying to do each one separately like I did for the Nav console, because that was just too much work. I just want to make sure that things kind of work. So I'm separating them out roughly, but I'm doing like 2 or 3 at a time as opposed to each one individually. And this is why. They're curly, and this is the first one I actually did. The fibers here are actually quite short, too short. They'll be fine. They'll fit in the Falcon. It's fine. I just wish that I would have made them longer, as I did for all the rest of the parts. These are actually the fibers for the back of the couch. These are nice. These are thick, so I can actually, I'm just sticking these in the straws alongside the putty that's already in there. So it's kind of nice. They're thick enough. It's the 0.25 millimeter fibers that are really hard to work with. But at 1/43 scale, a 1/4 millimeter fiber is an actual about a 1 centimeter light, so it actually makes sense. There we go. That's the, look, see the nice blue glow from the pits from both my side lights and the bottom lights. The lights on the back of the couch. They look pretty good, makes me pretty happy. That's the circuitry bay. Again, I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to see. If I put the light on it, then you can't see the lights. If I leave the light off, then you can't really see the circuitry bay. So I know it's kind of hard. There's a nice view from as you're coming into the main hold. That was exactly what I was going for with the lights. That's what I posted on Facebook the other day. There's the Nav console in light and in dark, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was fun doing it. I'm looking forward to the next step. I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing together.